Alright, what's going on guys? Splash here. And today I wanted to break down my endgame Twisting Blades Rogue build. I've been getting a lot of people asking me about it. So I just wanted to quickly go over the build and show you guys. Just going to start off with the skill tree. So starting off, this is an endgame build guys, so keep in mind this is like preferably for, level 70 plus or just world tier 4 and up is what I would say. But let's get right into it. For the skills, we're going to be using Twisting Blades as our core skill, Punctures are basic, we're going to be using Dash for agility, Shadow Step agility skill, and then for the imbuements, we're running Cold Imbue and Shadow Imbue. So getting right into it, for the basic, we're grabbing Puncture. We're going to do 3 total points into it for Enhanced and Fundamental Puncture. Mostly going to be used for combo points and energy regen if needed. Twisting Blades, we're going to go ahead and put, we're just going to sink all of our points into it, 5 out of 5, and then I'm getting an extra 3 points from my gloves on these. With a max roll, it would be 9 out of 5, but I'm missing 1 point on the gloves. But we're going to get Enhanced and then Advanced Twisting Blades, just for the cooldown. Going in here, I did all 3 points into Sturdy for the close damage reduction, and then another 3 points into Siphoning Strikes. Crit strikes against close enemies have an 85% chance to heal you for 3% of your max life. So that's great because you're constantly going to be hitting crit strikes. I sunk 3 points into Stutter Step. I don't know about you guys, but on Rogue especially, I just love to be as fast as possible. It makes speed farming and just speed running dungeons a breeze. Especially just for those last levels going from 95 to 100. It makes it very, very easy to be able to just fly through stuff. Coming down here, I put 1 point in Shadow Step. This is basically just my oh shit button. It's just to get away from CCs. 3 points into Weapon Mastery, 1 into the damage reduction against overtime effects, just because I had an extra point. And then 1 extra point over here into the Rapid Gambits. Evade cooldown is reduced. And then I did 3 points into Dash, going Enhanced, and then Discipline Dash. Coming down here, I'm running Exploit 3 out of 3 and Malice 3 out of 3. The reason I have 6 out of 3 is because I have an extra +3 ranks on my amulet. And I'm just going to touch base on this. I have tried +3 ranks to Malice, and I've also tried +3 ranks to Weapon Mastery. Weapon Mastery is definitely up there with Exploit. I just personally think I was seeing higher damage with the Exploit, but that is kind of preference. They're both very good. Coming down here to the imbued skills, so we have 3 points into Shadow, 3 points into Ice, and then we're getting an extra 3 points to both from our gear. But you're going to want to put 1 point into Shadow Crash, all 3 points into Consuming Shadows, so that whenever anything explodes, you get energy back. The Precision Imbuement, so your imbued skills gain Crit Strike Chance, that's a must. Frigid Finesse, this is just great for that extra damage to Chilled. Coming down here, we are going to be grabbing Adrenaline Rush as well as 3 out of 3 on Haste just for more movement speed. And then for this build, we are using Momentum, and there is an aspect that goes with this. It's in my opinion, it's the best thing to be running on Rogue as far as Twisting Blades. I might even try a build with Pen Shot and Rapid Fire, and I might even do the Momentum, but we'll have to see. But this is just really good for high-level Nightmare dungeons and just the survivability because you get the 20% damage reduction, the increased regen, and the movement speed. And with the aspect, you're also getting more health per second every time your Twisting Blades are hitting something. So that's definitely really good there. I'll show you guys the Paragon board. We'll go board by board. First board, we did Exploit Glyph, kind of went up the right, grabbed both Lawless, Skillful, Prime. Second board that we grabbed was the Cheap Shot board, and then we put in the Combat Glyph as well in here, and then we grabbed Oppress, Devious, Calculated. Coming into the third board, this is the Exploit Weakness board, so we did grab the Legendary Node as well as the Unassailable, Exploit, and Artifice. And then going up here, we grabbed the Chip Glyph, and we grabbed Tricks of the Trade, as well as Havoc for that extra crit strike damage, Focus, damage to elites, and then we grabbed one thing of Brawler, just for that damage to close enemies and that 4.5% damage reduction. And then the last board, we went ahead and put in the Closer Glyph, and we went and grabbed a Dominant for the extra core skill damage. And that's pretty much it for the Paragon board. And just keep in mind, guys, I will have a link to like the D4 builds planner if you do want to see it more in depth. But going into the gear, guys, so I know I already mentioned I'm running combo points. But going into the gear, so for the helmet, I am running Disobedience Aspect. I do have cooldown reduction plus ranks to Shadow and Cold Imbue, and then total armor. I would say this isn't the best build. Some people would prefer not having any ranks to the imbuements and just do other things like damage reduction, which is totally fine. Going on to the chest piece, I am running the Sovereign Mail, I think is the aspect name. That's where you take 24% less damage from crowd controlled enemies. Which everything's going to be crowd controlled anyways. But this is damage reduction, physical damage, total armor. So 2 defensive stats, 2 offensive stats. I think that's fair for a chess piece. Coming to the gloves, where I said everything is going to be CC'd, this aspect right here, the Mangler's aspect, dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has a 43% chance to daze them for 2 seconds. Daze is considered a CC effect, so you pretty much have a 43% chance of creating daze to any enemy because everything is going to be vulnerable by default from our basic skill and from the exploit glyph, so everything's pretty much vulnerable. And then I went ahead and got crit strike chance, attack speed, plus 3 ranks twisting blades. I would prefer plus 4, but I didn't get it. And then I'm running dexterity just for the Paragon board. Most people usually do like crit strike damage there, but it's really just preference. Coming to the pants, we are running the momentum aspect that I was telling you guys about. I did get a max roll as far as like this item power, that percentage, like the life per second percentage, like the 306, can go up if this was a higher item power. So if I had like an 800 item power pants, the life per second would probably be around like 330 or maybe a little bit higher. 306 is the best one that I've found. And then for the rolls, I did 3 damage reduction with a plus all stat. Personally, if I got another pair of gloves, or not gloves, pants, I'd probably just go for all 4 damage reduction. But the all stat does help with a little bit of my Paragon board, but I honestly don't really need it. Coming down to the Penitent Greaves, this is the only unique, or the second unique that I'm running in the build. And I'm not really running it for the effect. Like, it is nice because I'm running the Frigid Finesse where you do extra damage to chilled enemies. But I mainly grab these boosts because the movement speed just rolls very high. But it is nice having that chill effect as well. And if you run around enemies literally in a circle over and over, you can actually freeze them after a little bit. So it is pretty nice. Coming down to the crossbow, this one is definitely preference, but I put the Twisting Blades aspect here just to get that 100% bonus. I also got a pretty much a god roll crossbow. I just wish the item power was higher, but we did roll dexterity on here. I did re-roll for core skill damage, which I got very lucky, 57% out of 58. It already came with vulnerable damage, almost max, 40.5 out of 42, and then crit strike damage, 52.5 out of 52.5, so that's a perfect roll. Great crossbow. I would essentially go for the same rolls, core skill, vulnerable, crit. Dexterity's preference, you could go for all stat, but I do think a stat roll on there is needed as far as your Paragon board and hitting everything that you want for the most possible damage. Coming over here for the second unique, we're running Condemnation because we're running the combo points, so it's going to help out with that a ton. It's just going to give us more damage, and it makes it so that when you throw a basic skill, there's a chance just throwing one puncture will cause, you know, all 3 combo points, which is great. And then I do have Edge Master's aspect on my sword. We have double crit strike damage rolled on it with vulnerable, crit strike damage with imbued, and a high core skill damage reroll. And then the Edge Masters, where you do increased damage based on your primary resource. Got a max roll there. Coming to the rings, personally, the aspects that I have on both rings, it's completely preference. I honestly haven't done much of testing with other things, but I'm currently running the Ravenous aspect. You know, killing a vulnerable enemy guarantees you 70% increased energy regen. Pretty good. And then for the heart, we're running the one that gives you increased crit strike damage, but your non-crit strikes deal less damage. You don't really see a difference as far as like the non-crit strikes because everything is pretty much a crit. So I think that aspect definitely helps increase your damage a ton. And then for this one, I'm running the Imbuement skill effects, have 32% increased potency against vulnerable enemies because we're constantly switching from our shadow and ice. Everything's going to be imbued, everything's going to be vulnerable. For the heart here, honestly, I just threw something random in just because Rogue doesn't really have a ton of great hearts. I'm already running Heart of the Barber, so for here I just threw in you become immune for 3.6 seconds after you lose more than 20% life in a single hit. This can only occur once every 70 seconds. Completely preference optional. There's probably something better you could run here, but I just threw that in there. And then coming up to the amulet, I did roll for movement speed, we got energy cost reduction, damage reduction, and then the +3 ranks to exploit like I explained. But I have tried +3 ranks to malice. I've also tried +3 ranks to the weapon mastery. They're both really good options. I just personally find the exploit being the best. And then we did throw in a Heart of the Barber with a 2.7 second roll. Preferably I would want like 2.2 seconds or 2 seconds flat, but I guess with my RNG it's kind of impossible to get. But that's pretty much the build. Not really much more to really go off. I don't really have any high Nightmare dungeons. I guess we'll just do like a 46 just to give you guys a little bit of gameplay here. And then right before we actually start killing some stuff, I do want to show you guys the stats if you're curious. I know some people like to see these, so I'll go through these. I'll only name the ones that are honestly important to me, but I'll leave it here for a little bit so you guys could see everything. But I did focus on crit strike damage, crit chance, vulnerable damage. So my crit strike damage is at 297% base, crit strike chance 36%, and then vulnerable 203%. And when I say base, I mean there's no effects applied to this. As you can see down here, there's nothing enhancing that. That's just what it is with all my gear in Paragon. Coming down here, crowd controlled 157, dazed. I don't really go for that just because, you know, damage with core, vulnerable is much better stats to go for. And then coming down here, max life 10k, resistances don't really work. Max energy, I don't have anything rolled into that, so that's base. Energy cost reduction, you know, we got like 14%. Energy regen 9. Movement speed, I think this is like the next most important thing that I really focused on. And just so you guys know, you can get movement speed on boots, amulet, and then stuff from your Paragon board and from your skill tree. On Rogue, I actually don't think there's much in the Paragon board, but a lot of my movement speed is coming from the skill tree and the movement speed on the boots and the amulet. But as you guys will see, like once I start killing stuff and I get the momentum stacks, this usually goes up to, you know, 100, like 80, 190, sometimes even 200% depending on how many stacks you have. But I do love the movement speed on Rogue. And after playing Rogue with like 160% movement speed, it makes me want to do movement speed on all my characters. So I promise you guys you're going to love that for speed farming and just running through dungeons. But let's go ahead and get started. Okay, stockades. Not the best, but do with what we have. So yeah, as you guys can see, I mean, we're pretty fast. We just run through everything. Everything explodes from the barber and from shadow imbue, so very good. As you can see, everything's also vulnerable. Every time we hit anything, it becomes vulnerable. So overall, just a really solid build. You will notice that sometimes if you don't have your momentum stacks up, you will take a lot of damage and you'll see your health go low. But you don't really need to pop any potions, because if your health goes low, you know, you can just use Twisting Blades and get those momentum stacks back up, and then you'll constantly be healing again. So like I'll stand here, take a little bit of damage, and then as soon as I get my Twisting Blades going, you see my health just starts going up. So that's one way to prevent from dying, is like if you do get really weak, instead of popping a potion, you could really just go hit some other enemies, and then as soon as Twisting Blades procs and it's actually swiping through enemies, you're just getting health back from siphoning strikes and from the momentum aspect. So overall, it just works out really well together. I've seen other people run different key passives for the end, like other than momentum, and there's just like a huge survivability issue with those other builds. You might be able to output a lot more damage, but the survivability is just not there. So I think the momentum is great. It definitely helps, especially like if you're doing a hardcore character. I think it's definitely needed. But that's pretty much it for the gameplay, guys. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe down below, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. And then, like I said, I will have the build guide link. So if you want to see all my gear, everything in depth, and actually be able to pause and look at it and copy it, you can do that. So I'll have that in the description. All right, guys.